So, all right. All right. Well, welcome in to the Stronger Metabolic Makeover. I am super excited to have you here with me today. This is going to be fun. We're going to go through a whole lot of things, and I want this to be something that is going to provide value to you tonight. So we're going to go through a couple of different things, but I also want you to know that I'm going to give you some specific things that you're going to walk away with tonight. Okay, so here's what I want you to know. Number one, for those of you that don't know me and who I am, my name is Justin Kegley. I am the owner of Move It Fitness. We have been open now as of last weekend, 8 years right here in beautiful Rock Vegas. So super excited about that. So it's been a pleasure and a privilege to do that. So super excited to be here with you. If you do have, by the way, side note, if you have questions or anything, if you want to drop them in the comment box, feel free to do that. And then we can spend some time answering some questions here at the end. So we'll go through all of that. So here's what I want you to know. I am a certified nutrition coach. I have spent time training and coaching a lot of clients over the last decade, but specifically females have been the highest number of clients that I have trained. So my goal here tonight is to help you to cut through the crap of all the stuff that's in nutrition, all the new things and the old things, and what are myths and some of the stuff that goes along with nutrition, and just to give you some real context of how you can help to build a life that allows you to have a body that moves better, that feels better, looks better, and allows you to live better and to live better longer. So that is the goal. What you need to know about me, first off, is I'm not in it for the quick fix. I'm not the 30 pounds in 30 days kind of person. I'm not someone that's going to make this massive change because we want to get to a goal. The reason why that is I want to help you to achieve a goal, but then also to sustain it. So for you, those of you that don't know, about 17 years ago, I weighed 300 pounds. So I found myself after a number of years, just struggling through weight stuff, going this isn't working. I'm overweight. I'm unhappy with who I am in my own skin. And I found myself standing on a scale at my in-laws' house at 297 pounds. And for me, that was devastating because I had a 6-month-old son, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to show up and live the life that I wanted to for him at that point. So I had to make a change. And so tonight, my goal in this context for you is to do a couple things. Some of you may be in a spot where you're not really happy with where you are and you want to make a change. And my job as a coach is to help you to maybe tell you things that you don't want to hear and help you see things that you don't want to see in order to help you to be who you were created to be. So my goal is to not do anything tonight that's going to cause shame or to make you to feel bad, but I also want to stir the pot a little bit. I know that in order to create some change, we have to get, the feeling of what, something's got to change. I have to have something internal, intrinsic, inside of me that's going to create an overall shift to make me do something different in order to get a result that is different from where I currently am. All right, so I want to help you to build the habits of success that will allow you to not only achieve your goal, but sustain it for the long term. All right, so I have helped numerous women over the last 10 years to lose 20, 40, 50, 70, and even 100 pounds. And we've done that through simple and sustained efforts, getting 1% better every single day and building simple tasks and habits that allow them to continue to make improvements over time, to allow them to get through plateaus and frustrations where you feel like things just aren't working. This isn't for me. All of those things to allow you to ultimately achieve success. So as I was getting prepared for tonight and I was looking through a number of things in particular aimed at women, there are a couple of myths. I came up with 5 actual myths of fat loss and overall having, a healthy body, in particular for a female. And there are 5 myths that I found, so I wanted to share those with you as we got started today. Number one is you need to starve yourself. Myth number one is that you need to starve yourself. I'm going to break these down in just a second. But myth number two is that you need to do hours and hours of cardio. Myth number three is that you have to give up the foods that you love. Myth number four is that carbs are the enemy. And myth number five is you have to eat perfectly all the time. All right, so those are five things that I have come across in reading and also working with clients over the years that have stuck out to me in terms of the things that I hear that people are doing now. That you're eating low calorie diets in order to continue to lose weight, but ultimately you find yourself stuck in the same scenario and not understanding. We work out more and we eat less and things don't seem to be changing, and that is frustrating. The other thing is, maybe it's like, hey, we need to do hours and hours of cardio. Like cardio is going to ultimately help us to burn fat and to get to where we want to go. But we have to stay there on the elliptical or go running or the bike or whatever it is. And we have to do it over and over again to make sure that we're burning calories in order to burn fat. The next is, giving up foods that you love. You're like, I will never be able to eat ice cream or have a sandwich that you love or anything ever again. That's just not true. And the one that I heard and hear a lot, especially from women, is that I have to cut out carbs. It's something that I heard from people building up to this event going like, I'm cutting out carbs. I'm trying to figure out how do I lose some weight? And I've just cut carbs and it's just not working. And on top of that, I'm exhausted. And you're like, I know, there's a reason for that. So here's what you need to know. Things aren't going to happen overnight, right? We need to build, the body that you want to build will take time, effort, consistency, and discipline. So I told you again, I'm a coach. I'm not mad at anybody. I ultimately, there are times when I'm intense or loud or excited. And that's just because I'm passionate about this topic, because I want you to live the best life that you can possible. Now, I put this down for 45 minutes tonight, and I will tell you, I'm going to do my best to stick to that, because I ultimately want to either leave room for questions at the end or make sure we get you out of here at a reasonable time and provide you with some value overall. Okay, so there are three things that are key to a metabolic makeover. Okay, there's three things that are key to a metabolic makeover. I'm going to break these things down in great detail. Okay. Number one is training with intentionality, training with purpose, which involves strength training specifically, okay? Continually progressing in strength training. Number two is fueling for performance using all of the macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fat to fuel your performance and recovery, okay? That's number two. And number three is, we got to get your mind right. We got to make sure that we are taking care of your mood, energy, cravings, and stress in order to help you to live the life that you want so you can feel great about where you are. So let's start with number one. And it's this: train with purpose. Okay? Training with purpose. See, strength training, I believe, is the ultimate anti-aging tool. It's the ultimate anti-aging tool, because as you look at strength training, what it does specifically is it helps you to increase your metabolism. It improves your cardiovascular health. It builds bone density, and overall it stops this thing called sarcopenia, which is basically the decrease of muscle over time. Strength training is important because it allows us to age well. Now, when you step back and look at this, it's important to go, what does that mean? Because there's a lot of different workout systems, and I want to be specific in this. Strength training, in particular for women, needs to be done in a way that challenges you and progressively overloads you, and to continue to push you to get better over time, to lift more weights, to be able to hold weight for a longer amount of time, like a isometric hold, or to do something a little bit tougher continually. Because if we don't do that, we're going to find ourselves in a spot where we're just trying to chase our heart rate. And heart rate training can be good. There's value in it. But overall, if we are just running around with our, heart rate monitoring straps, or we're wearing our watch, our Apple Watch, and we're just tracking like calories and heart rate, and I got to get my heart rate up faster, I got to go faster, and I got to go harder. Ultimately, we're not going to build the lean muscle tissue that we need over time that has a metabolic effect, and that also is the anti-aging tool that we were talking about earlier. So here's why. Number one, building muscle burns more calories than cardio. Building muscle allows us to burn more calories than cardio. You see, burning calories in a strength training session can't be measured by a heart rate device because it's not a heart rate specific task. We need to make sure that we are building lean muscle tissue. Now, I keep saying lean muscle tissue because I want you to hear me. When we say build muscle, oftentimes what I get from women is, I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to have, big arms and big legs or whatever the case may be. And I understand that. The way you do this is to build lean muscle tissue is through specific programming that allows you to get stronger without overdoing your reps and set schemes, which it would take a lot for someone to actually truly get bulky. Okay. So I want to re-emphasize that lean muscle tissue is the key and the thing that we're going after. Doing compound functional exercises that will allow us to create better movement and to burn more calories over time. I said functional exercises because the four things that I listed in the beginning is we have to move better. That's a part of the beginning part of this process. If we're going to strength train, we have to learn to move better first, because if you don't move well, you probably won't move long because you're going to get hurt, and that's a problem. So we want to build the ability to live and move long term. Okay. Next is this idea, this afterburn effect. Why is building lean muscle tissue so important? Because when we're done with strength training, our afterburn effect continues for up to 72 hours. You see, when we do cardiovascular work, something like a bike, say you get on the bike for 30 minutes or maybe an hour, and you do the cardiovascular work, and you burn 500 calories, maybe 600, whatever calories. You burn some calories. At the end of that session, that calorie burn is pretty much done. It may continue for a few minutes, but after you burn those calories, it's done. Building lean muscle tissue allows us to have this afterburn effect that decreases over time, but continues on for up to 72 hours, which is significant because our body is working to repair the muscle tissue that we broke down during that training session. That's ultimately going to allow us to build better muscles, leaner muscles, and it's going to increase our metabolism and our thermic effect, allow our food to work more effectively within our body. Okay. So afterburn effect will help us to burn fat, but also building that lean tissue will allow our metabolic rate to increase over time. One of the things that we look at here at Movement Fitness is that we have an in-body machine. And so this device measures body fat, it looks at skeletal muscle mass, and allows us to assess how much muscle we have versus how much body fat and overall total weight. And so when we look at this, the thing that we measure is called the basal metabolic rate. This tells us what it is when what our metabolic rate is when our brain is working and our heart is beating, basically everything that we're doing just to exist. When we build lean muscle tissue, that actually goes up because our thermic effect, our body heats up. This is the whole idea of you fuel for performance and you stoke the fire, to help build lean muscle through that. So that is how we do some of that. So that's important. But as we go through this, we combat muscle loss, we look at how this impacts us over time. One of the big reasons that strength training is so important, and especially for women that are at the 40, 45, 50 age, is we want to continue to age well. You see, over time, we lose muscle tissue throughout our life. We lose about 3 to 5% of muscle tissue after the age of 25 every decade. This accelerates after the age of 50, which creates a bigger problem that by the time someone reaches their 70, they've lost about 25% of their peak muscle mass. Okay? So when we get to 70, the problem is we will need muscle tissue. Yes, we're going to lose some over time, that's for sure. But I can tell you right now, Debbie Kniepp on this call is a stunning example of just continuing to be able to have some lean muscle because she's strong and she's continued over time to build lean muscle tissue. But what's important about that is not just like, oh, does Debbie look good and feel good? Debbie can move well. Because as we age, one of the things that muscle loss creates a problem for is our inability to live independently. It also increases our risk of falling. And that's a problem when we get older. But when we get older, it's too late to build the muscle tissue then. We need to do it now so we can live better longer. And along that path, to feel satisfied and feel good about how we look, how we feel, and the life that we're leading, we want to make sure that we continue to combat muscle loss over time, okay? So strength training is the number one way to counteract this and to make sure that we continue to have the muscle tone, the muscle strength, and the functional capabilities that we want in order to live the life that we want to live, okay? So there's that. We want to make sure that we are continuing to build over time so that we reduce muscle loss over time, we increase our metabolism, but we also improve bone health because muscle mass and bone density are closely linked together. As muscle mass decreases, bone density also is likely to decline, which leads to osteoporosis. It can lead to fractures. So that's a big deal too. And so we want to make sure that we continue to increase our lean muscle tissue over time through our strength training. It also can have a huge impact on our mental health. Right now, as we look in our world, we have issues with mental health. We have issues with depression, anxiety, worry, fear, all of these things that come in. And there are a number of ways that you can combat that. But strength training continues to be one of the best ways to continue to combat overall mental issues, right? We want to continue to reduce the symptoms of depression and anxiety because the endorphins that are released after the workout act as natural painkillers and mood elevators. They make you feel better. So not only is it helping our body, but overall it is helping our mindset and our mood over time. So we want to make sure that we are continuing to get regular training in over time so that way we can continue to fight through all of the stuff that's going on. Tammy Moran says yes with multiple S's. I love it. This is so important. Okay, so that is strength training. There are so many things that I could go on and look at this. You could talk about chronic conditions. We could talk about all kinds of issues, but I will tell you that I think the number one tool for a female to have a metabolic makeover is strength training on a regular basis, 3 to 4 days a week in general, looking at how we can use functional fitness and exercises to allow you to continue to build lean muscle tissue over time. All right. So that's number one. Number two, let's fuel for performance. Okay. So I don't have too many people beat me up about strength training, although I'm super passionate and pumped about it. The next part of this is a challenge because oftentimes this is where people like step back and go like, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can eat that much. I don't know if I can eat that way. And, you know, there's all kinds of things. And I will tell you that there are all kinds of diets and plans. But in general, when we step back and look at how we can fuel for performance, there is one thing that we start with, and it is the key element in everything that we do, and it's this. It's eating protein. Protein, and how we do this, we have our approach is called the protein first approach. we do 3 things that we make sure. If you are not currently eating 100 grams of protein a day, I highly recommend that you get over that mark because it's going to make a significant impact on your body. Generally speaking, the recommendation is 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of body weight to increase lean muscle tissue when combined with resistance training. Okay, so that's what we want. But starting off, going like, if you're not getting 100 grams of protein right now, that is the place that you should begin. Okay, so when we look at this, here's the reason why. Protein is made up of amino acids, which is essential for building and repairing lean muscle tissue, muscle skin, and organs in our body. And it also plays an effect and has a role in producing enzymes and hormones, as well as other molecules for health. Okay, so those are the things. It's gonna play an important role with your hormones, enzymes, and lean muscle tissue over time. An impact on fat loss, we talked about this in the previous section with strength training. It increases our overall thermic effect. It allows us to burn more calories as compared to fats and carbohydrates. You see, when we look at macronutrients, we're going to break all these 3 things down: our protein, our fat, and our carbs. Those are the big 3 in terms of our macronutrient profile. When we look at those 3, protein is the key first because it allows us to do so much with our lean muscle tissue. Carbohydrates allow us to fuel our performance. We basically fuel our workouts with carbohydrates, and fats are good for us for overall, for brain, for joint health, and overall regulating our hormones. Okay, so I should have said that first. So let me back into my protein real quick. But the reason, again, protein, number 1, has a role in the body, so it's amino acids. Number 2, allows us to increase our thermic effect of feeding. And then next, it's not really an energy source, so that's important to know. But what it does do is it provides satiety over time, which means it makes you feel fuller. Okay, so it's one of those things. The biggest challenge when we look at nutrition is making sure that we are fueling enough. Okay, and so protein allows us to fuel up more, to take in more calories than we would traditionally think about taking in, but also to make us feel full over time. So you could go eat the same equivalent of carbohydrates and protein, and like if you ate that, like if you ate a whole bunch of carbs, you could be ready to eat again relatively quickly. But if you ate a bunch of chicken, like there's no way you're going to be ready to eat again, or lean beef, things like that. You're not going to be ready. It's going to make you feel more full over time. So that's super important. Okay. Next up is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates fuel our performance. This is really important because it's one of the things that a lot of women will tell me, like, I've cut out my carbs, I've cut my sugars, and I'm just not understanding why I'm not getting better. And I will tell you this: cutting out your carbohydrates is dangerous, because it is dangerous on your mood, it's dangerous on your energy. You're not going to be able to go after the things that you want continuously without fueling with carbohydrates. Okay, they're the body's primary source of energy. Okay, our body takes it in, it turns it into glucose. Not to get all super sciencey, like it takes it and then use it as energy in our cells. It stores it in our liver, it stores it in our muscle. It can be converted to fat long term. So eating too much obviously can be a problem, but eating too much of anything is a problem. Okay, so there's that. But overall, it helps us in terms of fat loss because it fuels our performance. Okay, we want to make sure that our body has a continual state of energy. And when we look at how we fuel with carbohydrates, generally, we bookend our workouts with carbohydrates, and then we kind of taper them off throughout the rest of the day and focus more on protein and fat. So the recommendation is really, when we work out, we want to have some protein and carbohydrates beforehand, and we want to have protein and carbohydrates afterwards. If you want to know some numbers, 25 to 30 grams of protein, about 40 to 50 grams of carbs. So think like a protein shake, some eggs and some toast in the beginning beforehand if you're working out in the morning. Or you can do something, same thing afterwards, have a protein shake. That's something that we recommend because it's super easy and you can do it right away. Have a banana. Generally, what we prefer is that someone would get their protein and their carbs from most of their nutrition from whole food sources. But then you can also add in some protein and to get some help there. Let's see, Debbie, you got your hand up. What's up? Hang on. Oh, hang on. I gotta unmute you.
I don't know. I was just saying hi at the beginning of this.
Oh, never mind.
All
right. Well, boom. There we go. I got you. All right. Debbie's good. She just wanted to say hi. Okay, so our carbohydrates, they support our brain function. They fuel our physical activity and allow us to continue to get better over time. All right, so carbohydrates matter. Now, what we eat can kind of become a source of question. Like there's simple carbohydrates and there's complex carbohydrates. Okay, really, like this is the challenge for some people. Is they'll say, "Well, I got rid of all sugars." One of the things that I talked about in the beginning, one of the myths is that you have to eat well all the time, that you have to eat super clean. If your diet is super clean and you're maintaining and feel really good about that, then that's great. But what I will tell you is fueling for performance means in and around workouts that you can have things that would not be considered clean food necessarily, or the healthiest things. Like if you look at white potatoes or white rice or something that is a simple carbohydrate, certainly a lot of fruit, which you should eat fruit. If someone tells you not to eat fruit because it's sugar, stop listening to their nutrition advice. Okay, so make sure that you can use simple carbohydrates because it allows us to get into our system, which will allow us to start the repair process in and around workouts. Now, I wouldn't tell you that later on in the day. Like later on in the day, we should eat something, sweet potatoes, you should have less carbohydrates maybe throughout time. You should have more vegetables that would fill and fuel you throughout the course of the day. So if you worked out in the morning, and then at night you had less carbohydrates or more complex carbohydrates, that would be better off. Okay. So, but I want you to know it's not just a matter of eating perfectly all the time. And carbohydrates are one of those things that challenge people in terms of eating perfectly. Okay. The last of the macronutrients is fat. Fat fuels our brain, our body, and our hormonal health. Okay, so looking at this, fats are a source of energy, but it also helps to lubricate our joints to feel really good. It allows our brain to continue working efficiently. It allows us to absorb vitamins, fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. It also helps us to regulate our body temperature, and it plays a big role in hormone production. Fats don't make you fat, okay? That's a very important thing to say. Fats don't make you fat. Fat will fuel your performance. Again, going back to what I said in the carbohydrate section, eating too much of anything will be detrimental to your overall health and your calories and your weight and all of that. But individually, these things are not bad for you, okay? So dietary fat allows us to be satiated just as well as protein. So when we eat fats and proteins combined together, which is the stuff that we should eat not around your workouts, that allows us to feel full, to feel satisfied, and to know, you know what, I feel good. I don't need to snack a little bit extra. I don't need to go to the pantry later because I'm satisfied. That's a big key in eating protein and fats to do that. It also allows us to make sure that we are continuing to have long-lasting energy over time, and it's important for endurance activities. So fats play a major role in making sure we are satiated, we're full, and also in taking care of our brain and our joints overall. Okay, so when we think about fueling for performance, we want to make sure that we have a good mix of what we're doing. Right? If we're overall looking to make some significant changes, if we're cutting calories, I would tell you, I would want you to increase your protein. What I'm going to do here in a little bit, I actually have a macro calculator that you can use that I'll put in the chat box. If you're a movement member, this is a part of our team builder and document links that you can go in and you can figure out, hey, this is a starting point for you to help to have fat loss and muscle loss. So we can put that in and allow you to look at that and see what that would look like for you. Okay, so to give you some more specific. The last part of this is mindset. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. And the reason why is this. Let me ask you, if you are now or have been frustrated in the past with how you look, or it could be a lot of things, could be your career, it could be anything. Let me ask you this. Number one, do you know what you really want? Do you know what you want? Really? You know, in AA, Bill W. has this, says, all progress begins with the truth. Being able to speak the truth to yourself and speak the truth to others, the truth about where you are right now, the time commitment it's probably going to take and being okay with that, but also knowing, what do you want really? What does your ideal body look like? What does your ideal body move like and feel like? What does it look like? What do your goals look like in a year from now? What does it look like 3 months from now? What does it look like a week from now? And then what are the habits that I'm going to start doing today in order to help me to get to where I want to go? If you don't know where you are, how do you know where you can go? You have to know before you can grow. So the first thing is being very specific with what you want. Being very specific, writing it out, telling people, like processing this and going, this is what I actually want to accomplish. If you can't do that, here's the deal. Most people say, well, I just want to be fit. I want to be healthy. I want to lose a couple pounds. I want to be, I want to be this, or I want to be that. And you go, okay, that's awesome. But I know from my own experience, I wanted to lose weight, but I also wanted to eat pizza on the weekends. I also wanted to, I don't know, maybe have a drink, or I wanted to eat some chips or something like that. But what changed for me was when you have that purpose, when you have that reason, you have an idea of where you want to go. And when you state that specifically, it allows you to start moving and measuring towards that goal. So, number one, do you know what it is that you want to achieve? Okay. Number two is live to a standard. Once you know where you want to go, you live to a standard and not your feelings. People talk about having willpower, and I will tell you, willpower, for the most part, is a challenge for me, because you think about having willpower means, like, generally people think, well, don't eat those cookies, don't eat those pizza, and like, oh, you have such willpower. You like don't eat those things. You're like, okay, well, the truth is we just don't keep most of that stuff in our house anymore. I don't keep it here at work because I don't want to have access to it, right? So if it's junk, I don't want to have it near me. So I know that if it comes into my house, there's a good likelihood that I'm going to be tempted to eat it. And then I'm going to have to fight myself in that moment. So you have to pre-plan and live to a standard. Go, you know what? I'm just not going to bring those things in. You know what? I'm not going to go to lunch and eat out because I know that's not good for me. Or if I do go out and eat out, I'm going to have a salad with some protein on top of it, and be very specific about what you're going to eat. So you have to set yourself up to live for success and live to a standard rather than living to your feelings, because your feelings will always find a way for you to go, you know what, it's okay. You can start again tomorrow. You can start again next week. Just one won't hurt you, right? And so while I said you don't have to eat perfectly, you also can't put yourself in a scenario where you're starting over every single week because you're frustrated by the time you get to that next week and go, like, you know what, I'm just going to give up on it. Okay. Our goal is to get 1% better every single day. Run your race, not somebody else's. Run your race, not somebody else's. There's no win in comparison. There's no win in comparison. I want you to think, what do I need to do to help me to get a little bit better? To get a little better over time every single week. For me, it was a matter of losing a few pounds every single week in order to help me to continue to make progress. And I would make one tweak at a time to continue to allow me to make steps forward. So for you, that can look different. You go, you know what? I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop going out and eating fast food, and I'm gonna pack my lunch instead. Okay, one change. Or you know what? Maybe you're not eating up to 100 grams of protein. You can start eating there. Maybe you're not drinking enough water. We could start with drinking enough water, half your body weight in ounces, up to at least 100 ounces of water a day. You can start really small, but start doing something that's going to allow you to continue to move towards success. I have this thing that we use in our metabolic reset program, and it's called our schmecks. And it's a stupid way to say we want to keep your schmecks in check. Because overall, when we look at our mindset, when we look at how we're evaluating ourselves, rather than just looking at the scale and the body mass, our skeletal muscle mass and our percent of body fat, we want to look and go like, how is your sleep? How's your hydration? How's your mood, energy, cravings, and stress? Your schmecks, keep your schmecks in check. And this is one way that you can step back and look and go, how am I doing with these things? SHMECS, schmecks. So, sleep. This is a challenge for some people. It's easy for others. 7 hours of sleep a night. If you're not getting 7 hours of sleep a night, you need to work towards making that a number. If you're currently sleeping 5 hours, you got to get to 5.5 or 6 first. Get a little bit better every single week. But that means you got to set a bedtime. You got to set a wake time. You know, these things are all small, but when you put them into place, they make a massive difference. Okay? So I want you to continue to move forward, making small gains over time. There's a quote from a coach that I have gone through. His name's Dan John. He says, most champions are built with a punch the clock mentality rather than extraordinary results or effort over time. It's not about extraordinary effort. It's about going, how do I continue to live through my habits? Sleep. Hydration, number 2. Are you drinking at least half of your body weight in ounces per day? Real simple. If you weigh 150 pounds, you divide that in 2, you go 75. Are you drinking at least 75 ounces of water a day? If not, you need to get there. Preferably, I want my people to be 100 ounces or more every single day in order to have the ultimate success. How's your mood? How's your mood? Is your mood good? Are you in a good mindset? Are you in a good space to go, hey, I know what I want. I know what I'm moving towards. I'm being specific. I'm writing it down. You know, I'm journaling, whatever it is, prayer, meditation. I am setting myself up for success. If you're not, your mood is something that can bring you down. The next is energy. We talked about energy with carbohydrates and we talked about it with fat. If you're not eating carbohydrates and your energy is way down, guess what? At some point, you're going to be really hungry, hangry, and mad. And you're going to be like, you know what? I need something to eat. Or you snap on a coworker or a friend or a loved one. And you know what? That's not good for anyone. Making sure we fuel for performance is not just about how do I look, feel, live, and all of that. It's about, you know, my overall life as well. So if your energy is down, take a look at that and go, look, if your energy's down, we got to figure out why. Maybe we're not getting enough calories in. Maybe we need to make sure that we're fueling better for success over time. Next, cravings. Are you craving? If you're like, oh my goodness, I found myself at 8 o'clock at night every single night and I want to gnaw my arm off. I want to eat some chocolate. I want to eat those cookies. I want to do this thing. If you're constantly craving something, you're not satisfied in your nutrition. You need to figure out what that is. This is why we use protein to provide us with that feeling of being full, to be satiated, to be feeling full. If we do that, then we're going to find ourselves craving less. Okay? And last is stress. How's the stress in your life? Look, many of you have stress. We all have stress. Many of you have high levels of stress. Many of you have things that are going on that challenge you over time. Could be your job, could be your family, could be your friends, could be kids, could be whatever it is. Could be a health scenario. I don't know. But if your stress is high, you have to find ways to manage that. We manage stress through journaling, walking, prayer and meditation, working out. We talked about the importance of strength training in terms of mental ability, in terms of reducing the symptoms of depression, anxiety. I want to help to encourage you to go, how are you dealing with your stress? Because if you have high levels of stress, you're probably going to have cravings. Your energy is going to be down. You're not going to feel great. And overall, you're going to find yourself in a scenario where you're not eating to fuel performance. And then that puts you in a spot where you're like, well, I don't need to go work out tonight because I don't feel like it. I don't need to go for my walk. But I'll wait for tomorrow. And that overall creates a problem. So, in terms of having a metabolic makeover, here's the simple formula. If you're not here, this is where you can start. Number one, 3 to 4 strength training workouts a week, where you continually push yourself to get better. That means we're looking at lifting more weights, doing something more challenging, holding something for longer, whatever it is. We can't just stay at the same thing all the time. We got to continue to raise the bar a little bit. And we can change the way that looks, but you have to continue to raise the bar a little bit every time. If you're not currently eating 100 grams of protein, you should start with that. Okay. If you want the technical formula, it's 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. That's what we want every single day. So you can take your body weight and go up to that. So if you're 150 pounds, it's between 105 and 150 grams of protein. Real simple math. You can figure that out. Looking at our water, we would like to have half your body weight in ounces, at least. If not, I would love to have somebody at 100 ounces of water. Pure water, nothing else. Don't add anything into it. Don't add other stuff. If you want to drink some other things, that's fine, but you need to have 100 ounces of water. Also, don't drink your calories unless it's a protein shake. Okay? Don't drink your calories. Don't drink soda. Okay? Things like that, things that have a ton of sugar in it. 7 hours of sleep a night. If you don't walk 30 minutes or get 8 to 10,000 steps a day, you should do that. That's a high recommendation. And then if you want to make a change physically in your body, you need to track your calories. I don't know that you have to track your calories over time forever. But if you want to make a change, what gets measured gets done. So you need to take a look at that. The number one thing that people will come to me and say, well, I've tried everything. There's actually this great moment with Tony Robbins. Have you seen it, where he goes up to someone and he says, tell me how you've worked to get better. And he said, I've tried everything. He's like, everything? He's like, yes. He goes, okay, what's everything? He goes, okay, well, I haven't tried everything. He goes, all right, give me 100 things that you've done. He said, well, I haven't done 100 things. He said, okay, great. Give me 50 things that you've done. He's like, well, I haven't done 50 things. I was like, well, how about 5? I haven't done 5. See, we get frustrated because we don't see progress quickly and we end up giving up and we think, well, I've done everything. It's not my fault. But I want you to know it is your fault. And I say this with love, because where you're at right now is a symptom of what you have done and been doing. So if you want to make a change, we have to do something different over time. And it starts by figuring out where you want to go and where you are right now. Know before you grow. And if you put that in place, figure out where you're at right now, start tracking your progress and go, look, how can we start making tweaks and changes over time? Then you can get 1% better and figure out the habits that you need to adjust along the way. And if you put these things into effect, if you eat your protein, you get 3 to 4 strength training workouts, and you start with that and you get your water, you will have the beginnings of a metabolic makeover for you. And you will energize your life. You will feel better. You will move better. You will live better. And you will look better. That is how you have a makeover. I went slightly over, Lisa. That was 49 minutes. Oh, Debbie with the clapping hands. I like it. Thanks, Debbie. All right. So, any questions? Was that clear? Oh shoot! I just dropped in the chat the link to our macro calculator. Rita, you good? Jenna. Okay, so let's do this. Tammy asked for, I missed, but what are carb recommendations? So carb recommendations can vary for people in dependently. This is why I put out the macro calculator. So generally it can be, my most recommendation is somewhere between 35 and 40 grams of protein, somewhere between 30 and 40 grams of carbs. That can, or 30 and 40%, percent of total calories, not carbs. That would be, I just said, oh, make sure you eat carbs. And you're like, eat 35. Just kidding. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't answer any more questions for you, Tammy, because you have a Cubs shirt on. So that's it. All right, moving on next. Just kidding. Great. Okay, so any advice for medication weight gain? So sorry, let me finish with Tammy because whatever. So 40 grams of protein, 30 to 35%, 40% of total macros to protein, 30 to 35% for carbohydrates, generally speaking, and 25 to 35 grams of 25 to 35% of macronutrients of calories for fat. So that was really confusing. Let me put this in here. 40%, 30 to 40% of calories for carbs, 25 to 35% of calories for fat. Sorry, that was confusing. Confused myself. All right, any advice for medication weight gain? All right, so Jenna, this is a challenge. So number one, it depends on like medication for hormonal health, medication for other issues. So this is a huge challenge, right? So number one, I would go through and I would ask a lot of questions. Number one, are you getting your protein in at the level that we're talking at in this? Secondarily, like, is this something that is short term? Like, if you got off the medication, is it water retention? Is it actual body fat? Have you seen changes in your overall profile in terms of like water weight, body fat, skeletal muscle mass? How has that changed? Is it something that if you got off of it, it would go away? Or is this like, hey, I've been on this for extended periods and now it's caused a significant issue for me? So I would implement all of the strategies that I started with there. And then you go, look, if that is, if it continues, then it depends on what the medication is. So, there's a lot in that, and I don't want to give you an unfair answer. I gained 15 pounds in 2 years and antidepressants. Yeah. Okay. So great question. So, number one, are you strength training regularly?
I didn't hear what you said.
Are you strength training regularly?
No, I just had a hysterectomy, so I'm just now able to start doing stuff again.
Okay, was that part? Is that part of the process for you?
What?
The antidepressants and leading, or is a hysterectomy? It happened, and now this is where you're at now.
Yeah, I started having problems after I had my daughter, and then I got on the antidepressants, and I ended up increasing them and had serotonin toxicity, which means like a manic episode. So we did genetic testing, which showed my body wasn't metabolizing that specific medication at all. It was just storing in my serum and causing me loads of issues. And so I'm on something that I'm better suited with now. But then as soon as I started feeling better, I had a hysterectomy. So then I couldn't do anything even though I was feeling better, but now I'm just now starting to be able to strength train and everything again. So I started with
Okay.
walking the last couple weeks, and then I'm hoping over the next couple weeks to start including strength training.
So that's great, especially coming off of that. Number one, walking is the most underrated thing ever in terms of like mental health and physical health. To be quite honest, like when I, weighing 300 pounds, my first move was walking, and it made in 6 months progressively challenging myself with walking, like made a massive difference. So I would start with that because it seems like, based off of what you're saying and what I'm understanding in the brief context of what we have, that you went on medication, it didn't work, and now you're kind of, you had the hysterectomy, and now you're coming off. Are you coming off of that? Are you maintaining that medication? What does that look like?
I have a new medication that works better with my body, that my body can actually metabolize and utilize. So I will be on
Okay.
that for the time being, but it's a lot better than the other one. So
Okay, great. I would say I would start with continuing to walk, and then you progressively continue to build up. So go like, are you getting your sleep, getting your walking, looking at your food overall, and starting to set yourself up from a macronutrient profile of going like, hey, I want to eat some more protein. So continue to build into that, because that's going to help you with overall satiety along with your fats. I would keep your carbohydrates with that in that scenario a little bit lower. This is not medical advice. I'm just going through and breaking down like what I would tell someone in that scenario, in your scenario. So, and then I would progressively build up and go, now we're going to add in some strength training when you're ready for that, right? Like make sure we're not causing any harm. But then you go, all right, if you're on a medication that's better for you, clearly something wasn't working beforehand and that caused a massive issue for you, then ideally you should be able to see some decrease. If this is something that's not medication related for the new medication that you're on, then ultimately you should see some changes in your body and be able to lose some weight if you're better metabolizing that. Does that make sense?
yes, it does. Thank you.
Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Great. Okay, so I have a hard time eating 128 grams of protein without going over my fats. Rita Land. Okay, so this is a challenge. So putting together a macronutrient profile that says like, oh, I have to balance this and that. So Rita, like, let's do this. Jump on here and tell me, like, give me an idea of like a generic day of where you're at eating wise.
Okay. So in the morning, I do protein shake, 1 or 2 eggs, which that always takes me over my cholesterol, but I always eat eggs or peanut butter and toast in the breakfast. And natural peanut butter has a lot of fat in it. It really does. And then for lunch, I usually eat leftovers, which is either chicken or brats or hamburger patties. And then dinner is the only thing I can't always calculate because it depends, like, because we make everything homemade and my husband has everything made before I go home. So it's usually we're always eating chicken, brats, hamburgers. So it's always protein and whatever vegetables or side dish, which but I always seem to go with fat, and I know it's the eggs and the peanut butter that usually gets there, and probably the hamburger, but I don't know what else to replace breakfast with, without just drinking a bunch of protein shakes all the time.
Okay. So you are consuming a lot of fat. So that would be number one, right? When you look at the challenge of what you're eating and eating whole eggs and eating peanut butter and eating brats is there's a lot of fat in all of that. So
Yeah.
Number one, you can consider this: eating egg whites instead of the whole egg, right? So when you break that down, you go 6 grams of fat in an egg. So, and there's 5-ish grams of protein in 6 grams of protein in an egg, 5 in an egg white. So most of the fat just lives in the yolk. So eating just the egg whites or having like 1 whole egg and 2 to 3 egg whites would be a massive shift. That would cut out 12 grams. If you had 1 egg and 2 egg whites, that would cut out 12 grams of fat immediately. Okay. So that's number one. So I wouldn't pair your eggs with peanut butter. So for someone that wants to see a body fat decrease or change, right, in terms of like having that with a meal, because peanut butter is not a protein. Peanut butter is a fat. I eat it. I like it. It's great. But peanut butter is not a protein source. It is a fat source that has protein in it. That's how you have to look at that. So if you do that, then you would switch it up and go, okay, what are things that you can do? You can eat Greek yogurt. You can eat Greek yogurt, throw in some fruit in that. Cottage cheese, eating more fish. A brat, generally speaking, has about 20 to 25 grams of fat in it with only 14 grams of protein. So the hard part is you're, again, going to a fattier source of meat rather than using something like a chicken, something like a fish, a turkey, ham, something like that, that has less fat in it and more specific protein, right? So protein, the peanut butter and the brats are more fat than they are protein. So that's what I would recommend. You're going to have to make a change. Now you could have one of them. So the challenge for you is you go, all right, if I'm having eggs and I'm having some peanut butter and I have brats at night, what you're ultimately doing is you got a high number to get to 128. So then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like way over on my fat. So get rid of something. Go like, you know what? I'm going to have egg whites if I'm going to have a brat at night, and then, the peanut butter, you can vary that or go, hey, we're going to have chicken or fish at night. And so I could have some peanut butter in that if you wanted to. But you're going to have to look at your protein a little bit differently and really consider the source of what you're doing. And so using things that have less fat in them as your protein source.
Yeah, because I seem to stay in the category or the calorie goal, but it's just the fat and the cholesterol because I like eggs and I know that's why. But but I always have a hard time trying to find something else to switch it with because pretty much everything we buy in bulk to feed the whole family. Yep. And then anything different, the kids try to eat it. So, but that's just my little obstacle. But so I'm always trying to figure out a different way. And I don't eat eggs and peanut butter the same day. It's one or the other. So if I run an egg, I eat peanut butter toast, which really isn't that healthy of a breakfast. But I don't want to eat cereal.
Yeah, well, cereal's bad. Don't eat like an adult. Cereal's bad. So looking at that, so number one is in our documents and links in Team Builder, there's 300 recipes in there that you can, look through and figure out, like, how can I figure out some stuff that I would actually like? So that's where I would start. And then just start mapping out something that's got less, some less fat in it, and figure out what is going to work for you. Because ultimately, if you're staying within your calorie range, you have a high fat, relatively high protein, and then you're going to have a super low carbohydrate, which could overall impact your energy throughout the course of the day. And you're like, right, I'm tired. So, so that's what I would recommend for you. Find some leaner protein continually.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's see. Teresa Bachelor says walking helps with your steps to reach. Walking helps with your steps, as well as your mindset. Amen. Seriously, so good. And then Jan says, "What is a good app to track your macros?" Okay, so there's a ton of them right now, but the easiest one I always go back to is MyFitnessPal because it's super easy. I use it with my people because they can share it with me, and we can look at that and make it super simple. So there's a paid version, there's an unpaid version. You don't have to pay for it. I think the paid is like now $75 a year or something, like $79 a year or something like that. But you can scan things, you can make it super simple. You can build meals out in that. If I find it, Jan, there was somebody that was just using that I talked to. Oh, Jenny Copeland's got another one. I'll have to figure out what hers is. So we can ask her tomorrow. But
I can ask her
you
too.
can message her. Yeah.
Yeah, I've used a lot of other ones, but I've never tracked. I've always tracked calories and not macros.
Yeah. So the challenge with tracking macros in MyFitnessPal is you can put in percentages. So you could put in like, hey, overall, I'm going to eat, whatever, make it 1,600 calories or 1,500 calories. And then I'm going to do 30% protein, 35% protein, 30. So you can go up by 5% categories in the unpaid version of MyFitnessPal. So that you can't get like perfect necessarily, but you can get really close. And so it's easy to track. But yeah, that's what I would recommend there.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, what else? Tammy, how's your bowling tonight? I think
Currently
that's it.
better than it had been.
Currently better than it has been. Okay, that's good. Jenny, chronometer, you can track, and I actually think that's the one that Jenny uses. So if I am chronometer, it's orangish. Yeah, that's what Jenny had, and she tracks it and she loves it. So I've used a number of different ones over time. I've gone back to just using MyFitnessPal in terms of my clients, just because it's easy and they can share it. But I know she uses chronometer, and that was good, so she likes that. So thanks, Jenna. All right, what else? Any other questions? Was this helpful? Specific? Good? Great. All right. Well, I appreciate y'all jumping on. Oh, thanks. Boom. Gotcha. Very helpful. So I appreciate y'all jumping on and being a part of this. So we're, the goal is to continue to put out, things like this and content just to help continue to promote, great health, to live better, to feel better, move better, and just have a better life. So thanks, y'all. Appreciate it. And go be great today.